Alrighty, how we all doing out there? Welcome to another Seven Cents podcast. We were off air last week because I was away. Had to go and hang out with some old friends that I haven't seen in quite some time. But we're back again, and we want to start by welcoming everybody to what is for you guys in the Northern Hemisphere, the 22nd of the 2nd in 2020. I mean, seriously, can you get a more auspicious numerology supporting you, which is heralding this powerful new shift that the new moon in Pisces is bringing for everyone right now? I mean, this is so incredible because what we're going to be sharing with you during the course of tonight's live stream is really nothing short of a miracle. And miracles are available if your heart is open and you're willing to receive. So we're very, very chuffed tonight because we'll be introducing a new practitioner to our live stream. And her name is Kimra Minuti, and she hails from Florida. And of course, Kimra will explain more about who she is, as she'll have a lot to say, particularly from the perspective of the divine feminine. We'll have our regulars, of course, Ricky Buckingham in the UK. Corey Kaplan's going to join us a little bit later from the US. And I have been told that if he's feeling up to it, because he's had a bit of a spill in the last 24 hours, but Greg Delapay over in Oregon is very keen to share some important insights with us all. So let's stay with this 22nd 2020, 22nd February 2020. What does it all mean? Well, to put it into the most simple terms we can possibly muster at this exciting time of shift and change, the sun is in Pisces and the moon is in Aquarius. And this is a highly illuminated co-creative energy where all manner of possibility and probability becomes so real and wickedly vivid in this new earth grid that we're all building in our individual potential, the discovery of the liberated sense of self, which is building this new earth grid and ultimately revealing this very brand new divine timeline. And at the very core of it, which is represented by the two is essentially, the mirror of a prime number, the mirror of dark shadow self, as well as the higher elevated illuminated light body. And this is essentially recognizing the intrinsic goodness that forms the very core of our liberation, very much into this new wave of energy brought about by this new moon in Pisces. However, there is always the but. At the same time, we have what is known as the build-up of the Mars energy in Capricorn, and that's forming what is known as a Celestian, kind of a quad, if you like, and that is becoming, more and more understanding the manifestation in the collective from a very detached manner. So right now, we're feeling and understanding our crystalline matrix and the way that our crystalline energy is the repository of knowledge, and the creative energy of Pisces is channeling that sacred knowledge into the external, and that this is manifesting in a very detached manner for many. And there are many surprises that become revelatory in nature with this type of energy. And I'll be going into that in a bit more detail. But the first thing I would like to share with everyone is part and parcel of this revelatory energy is getting shocks and surprises. And I got a ripper earlier today, a beautiful lyric from our compadre for Greg Delapay, who's doing a lot more live music these days. And music is the sonic transmitter of our true and higher ideals, to the greater expanse of the world and the existence that we're predominantly emanating and radiating at the highest octave of self-expression in the now. So I'm just going to read this. So this particular lyric for this song is called The Inquiry, and I think it's very auspicious that it fell today on this master number of 22. The Inquiry, one where the known and the knower are always entwined. Holistic implications may expand. Self-care needs to be part of the plan. In complexity, you'll find your way, tropical webs of connectivity. In the coursework, there is a path that you must trust and face uncertainty. Invisible depths of paradigms may blind, but binary oppositions will decline. Transformation working day to day. In complexity, you'll find your way. Disjunctions, they will appear when specialized approaches are employed. When reductions fragment what is seen, we lose sight of our ecology. Elegant minds will forge new destinies, matrices of personality. Transformation working day to day. In complexity, you'll always find your way. Wow. I mean, that's amazing. Truly, that is a beautiful kind of a deeper understanding of exactly what it is that we're all going through. And as Mars is powering into the galactic center and solidifying more of the Capricorn transits, we have both Mars and Saturn bringing a stellium. That's what I was thinking of. Well, I don't know what that other word was, but brings a stellium of composite energy in Capricorn. So this is really signaling the end of the old and heralding the birth of the new. And as long as you, the listeners, the dreamers, the viewers within the dream, lucid or otherwise, witness the art and culture in every moment, then this energy is extremely supportive. I see Joe's just joined us. Hi, Joe. So this is powerful stuff, guys. This is something that is worth discussing in greater detail because it's allowing us to truly see ultimately through the mirror that we've been co-creating for quite some time. And Mercury retrograde, as he chuckles in the background, is kicking everybody's ass in a big way because it's really helping us to redefine what's important in our lives. Because I think we've lost sight of our connection to really who we are because we get lost in the translation. We get lost in the distorted aspects and parameters of the language, if you like. And we all know that language and the higher octave of self-expression, it transmits our purest intention to the universe. So Mercury retrograde is kind of saying to us, look, we need to slow down. Some of us actually need to stop, get off this train, right? And click into a lower gear and really draw higher aspects of self-love into our unified energy field. And this will amplify the ripples that will create the conscious waves of tomorrow. So I know that a lot of us are out there at the moment going, I don't know what's up, I don't know what's down, what's black, what's white, what's real, what's false. I'm suffering insomnia, I can't seem to get to sleep. I don't know how to relax anymore, I'm always on edge. And that's predominantly because part and parcel of this really overpowering Mars energy is drawing attention to the fact that you, my friends, feel incredibly affected, right? You feel affected by everything that's going on, right? So the third party drama of your interactions with other relationships. Joe's just saying, I suffer from anxiety. Look, I know, man, we're all there, and we're all there supporting you. We're all there to help. And when Kimra comes on board and when Ricky comes on board, they're going to both bring some tools of empowerment that I think will be very will be assistive and supportive. But let me stay with this affected. When you're affected, when energy is ultimately compressing upon you, and never forget what the new moon is. The new moon is opening all manner of probability and possibility through your heart space, the center of your heart space, into a oneness where you connect with all expansive universal truth. So you're ready to receive. Your cells are ready to receive. You are ready to input new information, new data packets into the knowledge matrix, into your action matrix, in an effort to kind of externalize the internal. You already know what you like. You already know what you need. You already know what your true desires manifest within. Now it's about trusting under the power of the new moon in Pisces, this highly evocative and creative energy, and opening your heart to receive. This is the key. This is the key to removing yourself from being affected by everything happening in your environment, by being affected by the rigidity and the defined order created by the 3D, and becoming the effector. And the minute you become the effector, all of those other prison-like modalities fall away. All of that codependency falls away. All of that delusionary experiential energy falls away. You get to a particular point where you arrive in a state of neutrality, and you are truly open to all manner of anything that the universe wants to bring forward. And I like to define that as really not only internalizing the power of compassionate strength, but witnessing compassionate strength, and not so much the love factor, which I'm sure Kimra will talk quite strongly about in a moment when I get her to call in, but feeling that compassionate strength and seeing it turning up and showing up in your life at every turn of the spiral. So everything that I'm talking about here, wonderful people, is really designed to be supportive, because this is the breath of fresh air that a lot of us have been waiting for. Revelatory energy, which is a complete opposite to the Saturn-Pluto conjunction and the massive amount of delusion it drew around us, where we, as I said, we didn't know whether we were up or down, black or white. I'm supposed to feel this way, act this way. Which mask do I draw from the ancient wall today? Or do I need to continue to operate in the masquerade? The truth be told, that none of it within the holographic reality of the illusion you create means anything, because nothing is nothing until it's something, because everything is medicine, right? I just noticed that Ricky's here. Hey, Ricky, call in. And someone like Ricky and someone like Greg and Mark and Jill, we all attest to the fact that everything in this existence, in this 3D linear earth plane, is medicine, and that we have the ability to choose that particular integration in our lives more and more every day, right? So that's great. I see that we have Issa joining us. Hi, Issa. Nice to see you. You'll be pleased to know we have a divine feminine practitioner that's going to be talking a lot about the rather overwhelming female energy. So Kimra, why don't you call in and let's get you introduced to everybody. We're getting a lot of people coming online very quickly, which is wonderful. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And the other thing while we're waiting for the calls to come in is to let you know that we are moving, right? We've got a brand spanking new broadcast platform. No, call me on WhatsApp, Dale. Don't call on the Podbean app because I'm on desktop, not on the mobile. Call on WhatsApp. So we're moving to a new broadcast platform, which is free. We don't have any limitations on our time or anything like that. Hold on one sec. Good morning, Kimra.
Hi, good morning.
How are you? Are you in a good place with good Wi-Fi?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
Okay, great. Just hold on a second while I just finish this little bit of housekeeping. So we're moving to this broadcast platform called Megazine Radio. I'll put the link again in the chat window in a moment. And this is going to be a platform that is free. No one's going to have to pay with pod points or subscriptions or anything like that. There's no limitation to the amount of time we want to talk. And there's absolutely a completely seamless call-in service. We'll be using Skype and WhatsApp, which will have multiple lines, and you'll be able to call in and you'll be able to join the conversation, and we'll really be able to get a strong co-creation happening. So I'm just going to put that into the chat window and ask you to save that. And we'll also be part of what is known as Megazine Today, which is a new blog as well. And I see Dr. K has joined us. Hey, Doctor. Good to see you. Love having you with us always. And these two platforms will work together in a very high fusion of co-creation, bringing everybody together, and whatnot. Yes, good morning to you, my brother, and thanks for tuning in. Today's going to be a really good one. And without further ado, may I introduce you to Kimra Muniti. Is that how I pronounce it? Have I pronounced it correctly?
It's Minuti.
Minuti.
Like minute with a Y.
Okay. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about you and how you arrived at this juncture, because I think it's an interesting story.
Well, I am by culture and heritage a Haitian American woman. So I say Haitian because both of my parents are immigrants from Haiti. And I was born in Massachusetts, in Boston specifically, on Friday the 13th, which the year I was born was a very potent year. And I had 6 fingers when I was born. So wow. I always knew growing up that there was something a little awry with me, and that was like a hint, but I didn't realize what the hint was till much later. Okay. So I learned about witches when I was like 13, and then I realized, oh, okay, I see. But very quickly, I live in Florida now, and I have come to this juncture in my spiritual pathway via pagan white witch craft for the most part, and now mostly the law of attraction and meditation and affirmation. I have a Reiki level 2 practitioner attunement, and I also have a psychology degree in the Wonderful. 3D matrix.
That's great.
Yeah, I love psychology. Psychology is the reason that I started to go down my spiritual path, because I intrinsically understood that there was something going wrong in people's brains. There was like an imbalance of some sort of, whether it was hormonal or whatever. And as a child, my mom had an abnormal psychology book in her library. And I picked it up one day when my menstrual cycle started.
Okay.
And
Okay.
in the moment that my menstrual cycle started, I was overwhelmed with like this depression, like this overwhelming pain and hurt and sadness, just this bone wearying sadness. And I was like 9 years old. So imagine, it like crushed my soul a little bit. I was like, what the hell is this? This is not cool. So I picked up a book because that's what my parents taught me. They taught me if you needed an answer, you picked up a book, you'd find it there. I'm born before the internet, you know?
Yeah.
So I picked up a book, and it was an abnormal psychology book. And so that's how I started my path.
Okay.
Like,
So let me ask you this: how are you dealing at the moment with the Mercury retrograde?
it's kicking my ass.
Why
man.
in particular do you think that this is happening and becoming really clear to you, particularly when we have these auspicious numerologies like 22, 2, 2020?
Well, so look, I have a good friend of mine online, Tamsin Janani, and if she's on, she'll catch this and she'll laugh. The twos have been following us for approximately 6 months, like rampantly in our conversations, in our daily life. I get 22, 22, 22 all the time. I've been getting 1221, 1221. I get mixed numerals now because I've been at this for a little bit. I would like to say I'm an advanced practitioner in that I decode a lot more numerology than others. So I get constant fluxes when I'm in alignment of these numbers, and they're just like, and so for me, these are portals. These are portals in which we are now able to activate and tap into an abundant timeline. And if you are aware that a portal is clicking into place, and you are able to then release trauma, heal issues, love on yourself, forgive people, and let shit go, at that point, you are now able to access different portions of your awareness that you were previously unable to access.
Yep.
Okay.
Lifting the veil of amnesia.
And so, go ahead. Lifting the veil.
Just lifting
Correct.
the veil of amnesia. Keep going.
All right. So this is what I call the awakening. You know, so my awakening in the strongest sense started 7 years ago in order to train myself for this year. But I really started awakening in small sections throughout my life because I have very odd remembrances. Like, I remember watching the moon from my crib as a baby. That doesn't make sense. I was a baby and I was born in the winter. So that's how I know this was accurate, because I have pictures of the window and the icicles and the moon, and then I know the trajectory of the moon into that room. It only comes a certain way to where my crib was. It's very odd, you know. And how do I know these things? Like, how does that work? You know, why do people call me from other rooms but there's no one in the room? Okay, like different things. Why do different scents come to me where there is no scent? But it you know, these are different things that you have to learn to pay attention to.
That's right.
You have to learn to pay attention to them. And so, not to say that I knew that initially. Trust me, I went down the science pathway and was labeled and diagnosed almost everything under the sun because I started in a psychology book, you see? And so then I gained these psychological issues. So I had anxiety, I had panic attacks, I had depression, I had bipolar disorder.
Okay.
Then I had all these health issues where I had these imbalances, and I also have endometriosis, and then for 20 years I've been misdiagnosed with like a polycystic ovarian situation, and I just found out that I was been going to the wrong type of doctor this whole time. They've been trying to chop out my uterus. I'm like, there's gotta be a better way.
There's gotta be a better way.
There's gotta be a better way. Why do you have to take things out of me to fix things? That's not fixing, that's leaving holes in places. So, you know, thankfully, I've had the chance to grow through my trials to come to the awareness that there is a better way, period. There is a better way. And through this retrograde, I was brought back to my core purpose, which was to speak on these truths that I have come to learn. And I had been searching for a manner, and you don't even know this, I didn't even tell you. I had been searching for a manner to speak to people on this subject that I had come to learn in the last 7 years, because I understand that I can say so much more and be so much more impactful with my voice. And so that's why it says La Voz on my Podbean, nickname, because I am speaking from the crystalline heart space of the heart of Gaia. And that is what I have been learning. I have been sitting in nature, understanding intrinsically on a visceral level what the heck the mother has been wanting to say. And finally now, in this time, in this space, on this portal area, I didn't even know it was the new moon. I wasn't paying attention because these things don't really affect me anymore, but I still go into a ritualistic space in preparation thereof. So I lit candles, I lit sage. I'm sitting in a cloud of sage right now. I've got crystals. Like, these are part of my normal accoutrement of how I go through my daily. Because if I don't, life gets worse. So I prefer to maintain a certain level, And once you learn the trigger points, and once you realize what it is that you're supposed to be paying attention to, and you don't dismiss signs. You can't dismiss the signs. If you dismiss the signs, you don't get the message. And so that's what people think. They think that people are going to run screaming into you and be like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. No, it's not like that. It's very subtle. It's as subtle as a freaking deer walking across your path in the middle of the night for no reason. Like, what the hell are you doing there, deer?
Well, Kimra, let me just sort of stop you there, because I want you to kind of focus away from just that and talk about from a divine feminine perspective, because I got to admit, the seventh sense is really quite a lot of male testosterone, fairly sort of a predictable manly kind of thing. And it's great to have you with us because you bring and breathe some fresh perspective into it. But can you talk to the girls who have tuned in at the moment about the emotional overwhelm that women are feeling, particularly, in their heart right now, and how they're needed to kind of, they're questioning their soul journey at the moment. Can you elaborate, please, on that?
Thank you for the redirect.
Welcome.
Ladies, breathe, just breathe. It's an overwhelming pressure is what I'm feeling. It's an overwhelming pressure, almost like a grinding sense into all of your fabric. And it's that intense shaking in your heart space, in your sacral chakra and in your solar plexus chakra. These portions of your body, the gut sections of your body that are telling you that you aren't being 100% truthful with yourself, they are causing you some havoc right now, okay? And not only that, if you're really not listening to yourself, you're hurting yourself, period. I've had reports coming from women all over of falls and slips and bangs and knocks. My own child knocked her head. Her grandmother fell down. It's been extremely intense. It's been extremely intense. And even the most balanced practitioners that I know, like my bestie who trained me in Reiki, she was like, this shit is crazy. And I said, okay, I'm not the only one, fine. Because we've been skating through the last year's worth of Mercuries. It wasn't that serious for me or her. But this one has been ratcheted up. And I didn't understand it was the Mars energy until you said something earlier. And I was like, oh, that's why it's Mars. That's why it feels so grating on your senses, ladies. And if any of you are coming into your moon time or your menstrual cycle right now, I want you to understand that your menstrual cycle amplifies what's happening in the collective and what you need to work on in you.
Yep.
So if there's boundaries that you haven't been dealing with, that's why you get bitchy when it's your period. Because you're past your limitation. Your self-care needs to ratchet up. Your people-pleasing needs to disintegrate. Like, fuck that. My family understands that when it's my moon cycle, don't look at me. Nobody does. I go into a dark space and I commune with myself and I do the things that I need to do to not freak the F out. I'm a very powerful empath. I need to take it all the way down and I need to nurture myself deeply during that time span. It's not about being a strong woman or not. This is me living in my power, comprehending the purpose of my cycle. Because in this time of introspection and awareness, in the weeping that allows me to heal myself, weeping is healing, ladies. If you're not crying, you're not healing. You have to cry it out. Your waters must be freed. The trauma must be left out and shed from you. It has to come out some way. Cry it out. So when you're doing these things for yourself, you're allowing your vibration to thrive. You're allowing yourself to shed and leave behind the things that do not serve you, to allow yourself to align in the highest possible way.
Well,
become friends with your cycle.
I think that's great, Kimra. We'll go in a bit more in a bit there, but Issa is actually now on the chat window. You should be able to see her, and she's talking about the fact that she woke up in tears today and that she's really resonating with the fact that someone else is kind of, echoing, what is really happening in the collective, and that, the ability to connect, right now, as, both the feminine and male aspect of self is really finding that beautiful, engaging balance that kind of missing for so many, because you've been in this kind of overwhelming state of repression. That's the best way to put it. And we need to be very careful of that, because that is the kind of archon energy, the darker shadow self that loves to feed on the fear that embodies ultimately more and more as we go along. So please continue.
So fear is such a great topic. Fear is the mind killer, my friends. And not only is it the mind killer, it's the heart binder. You have so many fears binding your heart and masking you from your true potential. And it is so frustrating from a celestial standpoint to see these chains around people's hearts. So that's why when you get these intense energetics, you start to feel that shaking in your heart space. That's what these panic attacks are. That's your heart knocking. Time to wake up. Time to wake up. You don't have to be afraid. The universe is not out to get you. There is a way to live that's different. Open up. Let me in. I have a better way.
Beautiful. I love it. And we've just got to applaud that. So let's just get some cheering happening there. All right, let's hold for a moment while we've got Corey coming online now. Ricky, do you want to call in now so we can get you in on the conversation, please? Good boy. Here we go. Hi, Ricky. How we doing? Bro, you there? Hello? Okay. No good? No good. Okay. Let me just try calling him, see if it works.
All right.
You got it now?
Yes, that was strange. I don't know what happened there.
That's all right. We've got you. We've just got Kimra talking at the moment about the divine feminine. You want to say a quick hello?
Yeah. Hi. How are you doing? It's good. The issue. Oh, I can hear you. That's great. I can hear everything. Oh, good. Okay.
You can hear?
I can. Yeah, I can hear Kimra as well.
Okay, cool. All right. So as we know, the best way to do this is I'll just kind of open the conversation and then throw it to one of you, and then you can kind of just like bring your truth into the focus. Okay. So Kimra's talking at the moment to our women listeners a little bit more about the whole kind of, getting in touch with the heart, getting in touch with the water in their menstrual cycle, and really, befriending those parts that for so long have been like a taboo. There's been a sort of an embodiment of fear in dealing with all that because of the apprehension and the anxiety it creates, right, Kimra?
Absolutely. And it's not even just so much the taboo around the menstrual cycle. It's just the problem in the matrix. See, the problem in the matrix is an imbalance where the divine feminine up until now has been suppressed. Okay. And so because she's been suppressed, things that matter and are of importance to women have been lost in the mix.
Yep.
And so we don't have representation. We don't have the proper teaching. We aren't told things the way our mothers used to tell. Grandmothers used to sit their girl children down and explain to them. They would take all the children and they would explain to them, well, this is what's different about us and how we receive it. And we have lost these stories. We lost them. And so now they're finding their way back in the forms of metaforms and metadata and meta languages and stuff like that, but also in the form of prophecy in the hands of indigenous people. So there is a rainbow warrior prophecy that's out there.
Absolutely.
That speaks of people such as us speaking the truth of the mother again so that we can right the balance. And so that's why you're seeing all of this twin flame energy journey things happening on the internet. You see that's been a whole hullabaloo. And then there's the whole divine masculine, divine feminine now, because we're in the balance. We're in a two. Two is evening out. So, okay, so this is one side and another side now. We're in balance because we were out of whack prior.
You bet.
And we weren't in the place able to flip it. That Me Too movement wasn't just a thing. Yeah, there was some underlying political things that had nothing to do with it, but there was a reason behind it. There was a real reason behind it because things that have been done to the mother must come to light so that we can heal them and move on.
This is wonderful. I just want to jump in for a moment because really this is recognizing the delusion, guys. Okay, the delusion is everywhere because how better to test the whole kind of human genome than presenting delusionary based challenges to you. Okay, so all these things that well up underneath you and ultimately amplify and intensify your emotional plane are asking you to be able to recognize it, acknowledge its existence. Yep, it's there. It's teaching me a lesson. I'm super humble. I'm grateful for it. But now I know that it doesn't serve a purpose in my new life, on my new timeline. And so I'm just going to thank it for its service and send it back to source, right?
Absolutely.
That's the key. And that's exactly what you've been referring to. And I think that a lot of the women are going to take a real kind of a comfort leaf out of that book because they need it, and we as men, we find it difficult to be able to speak in a manner that kind of addresses the practical, right? It's not always about the metaphysical. It's not always about the spiritual. It's not always about what's happening in the astral and what's happening, in the etheric. It's about what happens in a practical sense in this kind of rather, compressed state of delusion and confusion. And I think it's great what you've been talking about there.
Thank you. I feel that, I think that's part of my message, honestly, is that women have always been practical in their relationship with the earth. Always. We are the keepers of the harvest, the hearth, the home. We are practical, but in straying away from speaking to the mother, we also have fallen out of tune and tend to then have to operate in a manner that is unbalanced. So for many years, I operated in a more masculine headspace and a very closed off heart space.
Well, you had to, right? You had to. You
I had to, related to my sexual trauma.
Exactly.
Right. And so that took a lot of work. Opening up to that. And this retro slapped me in the face with it. And I was like, oh, why would you do that? I was like, I thought
it was gone.
I'm ready for this lesson. So that's the lesson we're ready for today. And I was like, son of a biscuit eater. Like my whole chest was like, I was so upset because I saw one of my perpetrators and my husband was with me in the car, and I was just like, and I had to just let it go. And I had to say, you know what, I'm better than that. I've moved on. I'm married. I'm loved. I'm supported.
Exactly.
I forgive you for your atrocity. You're same space that you were before anyway. So who cares? You're already suffering.
Are you moving around, Kimra, because you're dropping out now?
I care. I was like, you can watch this later. Like, screw you. And that was it. And I let it go. And I thought a little bit later about it because it was triggering. You can't not.
Absolutely. Well, just kind of take a back seat for a moment.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Take a back seat for a moment.
Hello?
Yep. You want to call back? Maybe call back.
Yeah, let me call you back.
Okay. All right, Ricky, over to you. So that's some pretty incredible stuff that we've just had a listen to. Let's put it into a context with what's going on in your life at the moment, man.
I'm trying my hardest to see clearly. Yeah, follow my heart, and trust in the path. But the feminine energy, it's what can we say? The true masculine, the divine masculine, supports the feminine, and doesn't overpower. There's a sense of how the trees blow in the wind. This sense of we blow in the wind with someone. We don't try and dominate. I don't really feel these things are true masculine. Obviously, these attributes that we've seen so often. And the way the abuse with the men and the sexual traumas that are caused towards women, which, let's face it, that's really heartbreaking. Really, it's sad and it's heartbreaking because it's not the.
That's right.
The truth.
Keep talking, man.
Yeah. So it's heartbreaking, those experiences, and
I got you, Kimra. Just hang in there.
Okay.
I feel that the masculine shadow is partially responsible for those things, but I do feel that there has been a weakness within the masculine, and he has been able to be affected or manipulated in some degree within his shadow, to pull him out of balance, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's men and women. Obviously, we both lost that connection to the earth, to our deeper knowing, and slowly shifted out of the body more into the mind and more into the concepts and all the ideas of everything and that, pulled all over the place, in regard to trying to succeed or trying to fit in into the world, and be somebody and all these pressures. But I'm aware that now the feminine has been so pulled into those delusions also, and it's really sad because she's got so much to bring, yet has been pulled into having to be tough. Bloody hell, women are tough. I know a lot of women are a lot stronger than me in some many ways.
You and me both, man. You and me both. You know that.
Yeah. So, but point being is that it's more this dominant sort of energy that isn't the truth of the feminine, and I feel isn't the truth of the masculine. Yeah, we're here to be strong at times, but there's this sort of hustly bustly sort of I'm pushing in there, like this really dominant aggression sort of thing. I don't think it's a natural, male attribute, but although these traumas and things have been extremely difficult on both sides, I think that through coming through them and through the healing that takes place, there's something more beautiful. We end up in a more beautiful place than where we were, which I really like, because we've gone through the pain, we've gone through this difficult experience, and coming out of the other side is like so much more brighter and beautiful, you know. It's a bit like how I spend half the year in England, you know, and then I get out and I'm like, oh my God, sunshine, you know.
Well, as you know, you got on a bike and pedaled halfway across Europe to, you know, all the way to Spain. So, you know, that's a huge step. I think this is wonderful because what you've recognized there, both of you, is that you have already begun to experience what it is to be in the crystalline matrix. Your crystalline spine is now emanating a higher illuminated light code that sees through the bullshit, right? You see through it. The delusion presents itself at every turn, and yet neither of you fall into its clutches. Because you're so mindful, you're utilizing the power of your filter of discernment and this revelatory energy that's welling up underneath your cork and moving you listlessly and lovingly across the expanse of this existence. So what we're trying to say here is that all of you, whether you're conscious of it or whether it's still embedding within a subconscious capacity, you are growing into your crystalline matrix right now. And you will be emanating a higher vibration that will tune in. You know, I want to talk to Kimra about something we discussed earlier, and that is, let's talk about the whole tuning rods. You know, the whole idea of the fact that, you know, once we explode, if you like, the delusion that is the ascension and the ascension symptoms, we arrived at the fact that we're in this biofeedback loop, and it's an empowering aspect to most people. So let's discuss that concept, shall we? Let's talk about, you know, probably the dichotomy that exists, if you like, between how people use the internet to empower one's potential and yet not allow it to kind of rule their every moment, which means they get stuck in the old earth grid and part of the old duality matrix. Kimra, would you care to elaborate on that?
Sure. So one of the things that I've noticed is that people will get into a social media group to find out what is going on with their symptoms, their ascension symptoms. And instead of recognizing that these symptoms are a temporary place to be, they get caught in the symptom loop and talking about it and complaining about it and just wrapping their mind and letting the internet rule them instead of controlling what's going on in their lives. So the reason that people have issues with social media is because they're like always on it, but for the purpose of gratification as opposed to utilizing it as a tool.
Yep.
I use my social media specifically to catch the emotional timber of what is happening in the awakening social community. So everyone who's going through these awakening symptoms, like they'll start posting stuff, and you know it comes in a wave. And I'll watch these waves and I'll watch them run around the whole planet because they'll hit at different times. And if you're watching these types of things, you're able to say the correct things to people at the right time.
Yep.
Because it's evident. It's an ebb and flow. And so what I want to caution people against is getting trapped in the loop. Don't allow yourself to just go, oh, I have this symptom, I have this symptom, I have this symptom, and it keeps happening, and it's just so horrible, and I'm complaining about it. Like, no, the symptom that you're having is related to an energy body. And if you don't clear what's in that energy body, you will continue to have the symptom. Now, that's not to say that when there's an energetic transit, like what's happening right now, that you're not going to feel some pressure, but you're going to navigate it with grace and ease.
Yep.
In comparison to someone who is in the complaining cyclic loop of, oh, this symptom and that symptom and that symptom. Well, yeah, all of these symptoms are going to continue to show up because you're feeding the symptomology. Okay, so energy flows where focus goes. What are you focused on? So if you're ascending, you're not focused on the symptoms. You have to have a ruthless attention to ascension, which means eventually you will shake off the symptomology because you become a tuning fork of clarity.
Yay, love it. Beautiful. Keep going, girl.
So that's what I've been learning. Now, the pathway to it looks like 1,000 different things. I started in a starseed, Dolores Claiborne, first wave, second wave, indigo child, then Blu-ray, situation. I went through all of that. And then I went through my Akashic record, and I was like, okay, Syrian and Lyran and all of these other things. Okay. But at the end of the day, back to the heart thing.
Yeah.
Okay? And when you marry the mind and the heart, then you get unity. And that is in love. And we don't go anywhere else. And then you drop all these labels, and then you start to say what I say. Separation is an illusion.
Yep.
We are one. You are me, I am you, we are one. You are a reflection of what I need to know today because I can't see it in myself. So the universe will bring an eddy of that energy that I'm broadcasting to reflect to me what it is that I don't understand today.
Beautiful.
So am I going to take this lesson, or am I going to take this mishap as a disaster, or am I going to recognize that there's a lesson? There is always a lesson. I don't care. I don't care what you say. It's horrible, it's wretched, but there's always a fucking lesson. I'm sorry. You just gotta look for it, and you just gotta just understand that there is one, and it may not be one that you enjoy. Fuck it. Sorry, that's what it is. But if you're addicted to ascension and you have a focused intention to accomplish your goal of getting through this shit for the best so that you can navigate it with intention and grace, then you will. And then you will come to the other side, and things like this retrograde will be intense, and you'll be like, yes, I'm about to level up. I'm about to go to a new awakened state because the level of pressure that I am under is what creates diamonds, period.
And everything she just said is wrapped up in the new crystalline matrix. Right? Because that's you recognizing that, hey, I'm not attached anymore. I'm not affected. I'm the complete effector. I control through my choice points, through my deeper connection to being liberated, because I have that. I am consciously and align to God. That's how I tune my emotions to consciously align my connection to God, or whatever you want that or deem that to be. But this is the crystalline matrix that is now beaming out all manner of possibility and probability, as we like to call it, the collapse of the wave function. And Corey, yeah, go on, Corey, very quickly. I have a quick something to say about sacred, masculine, feminine point. All right, cool. Hang in there, man. We'll get to you. So I think what, Kimra's doing here is she's recognizing the fact that the ascension symptoms isn't going to grow wings and you're not going to fly off and arrive in the angelic realm. It's just not going to happen that way. And I want to explode that delusion for many, because everybody, I've got my angel cards, or I've got my tarot, or I've got this, or I've got that, and I can live my life, through the mirror of the delusion that it creates. It's simply recognizing that you're lifting the veil of amnesia that you were deliberately manipulated into when you made your soul agreement. Don't ever forget, you made a soul agreement to come into this vessel, which you call a body, inhabit it, and live this 3D earthly experience. But when you lift that veil of amnesia, what is waiting for you on the other side is remembering. You're remembering your true original blueprint. You're remembering exactly how God's divine plan, unfolded for you before the manipulation, before the patriarchy, before the matriarchal societies, before defined order, before all that crap. right? So this is a really powerful, revelatory energy brought together by Mars powering into the galactic center and solidifying this really difficult Capricorn transit, right? Joe's asking, how do you remember? Hang on, one sec. Joe's asking us, how do you remember? Kimra, how do you remember if you've been bombarded by a million different things, emotional, physical, mental, spiritual, or whatever? How do you remember your true original blueprint? Perhaps you'd like to elaborate.
Oh, so that's a great question. And so let me tell you how I started. I'm a very musical person, and so I was given a meditation. It's a secret meditation. I found one on SoundCloud. It's about, hour and a half long, and I played that thing, and it had 528 and 432 hertz music in it. Also, let me make that clear, because those were key in switching myself more awake. But for like 3 years, I listened to that for 3 years, because in 2014, I had a nervous breakdown. That's what they told me. They told me I had a nervous breakdown, but I had a nervous breakthrough where I was able to open up many of the fear blocks in my mind. But in not having a support system that was able to refer to me that this was not something that I had imagined, I had to suffer for a little while before I could get to this music. And so for 2 to 3 years, I listened nightly to this 528 and 432 hertz music to tune my DNA, and I worked on it.
Beautiful.
I did it in the easiest way that I could do it, because I was extremely depressed and sick at the time. I was extremely depressed and sick, and all I did was work and sleep. And so I would make my sleep count.
So you utilizing the power of your dreaming, which in a way allows you to experience, the real reality, the genuine plane of reality exists when you detach from this kind of, the vehicle. You use the vehicle, I need to go and do this. I need to go to work. I need to go and enjoy my recreation. I use my vehicle for all of these things. Then I park it, I get out of it, and I go back into what the ancients call the rebirth stage,
Right.
And I think the more that we can recognize, and Joe, perhaps part of the remembering is allowing a part of you that no longer serves to die, right? Let it die. One of the reasons why the human is such an interesting anomaly within the kind of planetary expanse of the multiverse is we have this ability to birth and die, okay? Whereas a lot of the celestial beings, and I won't go into all that in detail, they've made a choice to kind of accept and adapt to their mental construct. They want to live in that delusion or whatever that represents more than the challenge of rebirth and death. And I think that, the ancients used to wake with the sun god Ra in the morning, and be incredibly humble and grateful. They would go through their day, and then they would take all that they learned through the day, and they would take that with them into the dreaming or into the underworld, right? When the sun passed below the horizon and everything went into darkness. Well, when we go into that dark space, this is when we get our downloads. This is when knowledge is imparted to us, because our human psyche, if you like, our tuning fork has arrived at a point where it's ready to receive these transmissions, right? It's making sense to everybody?
Yep.
It should make sense, because at the end of the day, if we are all freestanding tuning forks, then we're transmitting the highest octave of self-expression to the universe every day. And that means we're in control, and that we are definitively living by those choices. Okay? So I think that we're at this point now where this revelatory energy is giving us this incredible kind of boost, energetic boost, to arrive on the other side where, you know, we can either buy into the delusion, and we can do this on a day-to-day basis, a minute to minute, hour to hour, you know, day to day, week to week. We can either buy into the delusion created by the false flags. You know, we've got Uranus in Taurus. It doesn't like complacency. It won't stand for the comfort zone. It wants you to be maverick. It wants you to change out your habits. It wants you to move out of the delusion and into the higher illuminated plane of possibility. And that's what this is doing, right? It's like I said, that Mars and Saturn together brings a stellium of composite energy in Capricorn. So it signals the end of the old and it heralds the birth of the new. And as long as you can witness that kind of flow, the divine flow of art and culture and music, as Kimra was saying, and most of our listeners already know that Ricky and I are composers and musicians and performers, and that's how we make, our life, if you like, our living, if you like. So as long as you can witness all that through that lens of art and culture, in every moment, this energy will support your journey. Ricky, you want to add something to that?
That's good. Good what you're saying.
Or you just, it's cool, man. If you're feeling that you just want to kind of like, just lay back and let it all kind of be immersive, then that's fine too, dude.
Yeah, for a minute more. Yeah, go on. Carry on anyway.
Well, Kimra, I've got a question for you now, because I've noticed that we've got loads of women are now with us, which is fantastic, right? I'm just going to read out a few names here, okay? So we've got Jess. Hi, Jess. We've got Akasha. Hi, Akasha. Issa. We've got Pinky. We've got Mo. I think that's a girl. Could be. We've got Lisa. Karen. Oh gosh, Nikki. Oh, and there's heaps. Anyway, that's just to kind of let you know that our conversation is kind of created, it's galvanized in more of the female energy than the typical male energy. So thank you, girls, for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And don't forget, if you've got a question, just put it in the chat window and we'll address it. Or if you want to call in, you know what to do. You can do that as well. But the big question I have now for Kimra, and I think it's a good one, is let's talk about the messages that you get from self that you express to other tuning forks that are aligned to your frequency, that are aligned to your kind of, harmonic resonance and vibration.
Wow. So
I thought I'd throw you a good loop there, girl.
Yeah, that's a lot. So yeah, it's okay though. It's a great question because I know that everybody is unique in the way that they experience things, and so the uniqueness of my expression will aid others. And so I have a wealth of tools at my disposal, and I'm very thankful for them. So I paint and I draw and I write poetry, and I wrote a book of poetry and art called Lighten Up Phoenix, Keep Rising, and it was based on the law of attraction. And it was based on this ruthless need to feel good, to find emotional stability. And so when I am referencing other tuning forks, I tend to speak in law of attraction, or I tend to speak in color or chakras or music. So that's how I tend to hear things. Like if I'm speaking to someone and they have, say, an issue where they're not trusting where a relationship is going, I may get colors and symbols and songs that will tell me the nature of the relationship, and that's interesting for me. I used to not be so visual, but as I've upgraded in the last few years, I am now better able to discern in a visual, subvisual, I guess, because my eyes are closed, but I'm able to see discrepancies in people's chakra patterns. Like, I can see it like that, and I can see it in myself. Like, I could never see my own aura up until maybe like 6 months ago, and now I can see it, so that's pretty cool. And then you said, how do I get information? I get information in a very interesting way. I have ties with elemental spirits, and so I get information from the wind, and I get information from water, and like I'm kind of like a weather witch. I can always tell like what the weather is about to do. I'm like, that smells like a cold front. Or,
wow,
this is right.
That's a gift.
It's weird. It's really weird. I've lived in Florida for 30 years, and this weather is mercurial. But I can pretty much walk outside and be like, you should probably bring a jacket or something. And, you know, I'm like, I smell rain, and you should put that away. Or, honey, close the windows. It's going to rain. And he will. Like, he knows. He'll just be like, close the window. He's pretty good, too, though. So that's, you know, that's part of our dynamic. We have a very interesting, like, psychic dynamic between the two of us, which is lovely. So my inputs are, they're nature related in the extreme. So, cats, and like, I always tell people I speak cat. Like, I speak fluent with cats. They'll walk right up to me and just be like, and I'm just like, are you serious right now? And I talk to them like, I'm that odd person. I have no shame. I'll just tell you that right now. I'm that odd person who'll walk up to a cat and be like, hey, Mr. Cat, how you doing? You know, and people be like, what's wrong with you? Or I'm like out hugging a tree in public, like, hey, tree. And then they're just like, really, girl? And I'm like, yeah, I don't really care anymore. I used to hide these things, and I don't anymore. Now I'm just like, I'm that weird girl. I carry a big branch of sage, dang it, and a seashell as my ashtray in my car everywhere I go. So if you have some funk, I'm saging you. Like, let's stop. But you know, that's how I get my inputs. I get my inputs from what I learned from my pagan witchcraft, which is not what you would have thought it would have been because I'm Haitian. See, a lot of people think that I would do voodoo because that's in my lineage, my blood lineage, but that was not the pathway that was open to me first.
Shall we leave that one out for the moment, Kimra? I think that might be pushing it a bit much, darling.
Yeah, no, you're fine. I tend to wander. You'll be all right.
Okay. So let's just kind of bring it back into the collective. If you were to give any sort of empowerment advice or tools to people who are dealing with emotional overwhelm, not just the women this time, but to everybody, you know, what would be the kind of the soothing message or the soothing form that you would ask people to kind of become mindful or observant of, you know, because, you know, we're going to get Corey calling in shortly, and he's going to talk more about, you know, the fact that everything can be broken down to the metaphorical duality principle, you know, the simple quantum duality principle, and that for some that's difficult to kind of grasp, but for others it's really, really easy to understand. So what sort of message would you offer to people, you know, who are dealing with a great deal of anxiety or kind of, you know, emotional overload or overwhelm of any kind?
Learn the law of attraction.
Now,
really learn it. Learn it, use it, practice it, work at it, constantly learn it, because that will be your turning point. That will be the way you learn to flip this bad boy upside down, because that was my turning point personally. I was very emotionally unstable. I had codependent like thought patterns. I had all these narcissistic relationships. It was very difficult for me. And if I had not went into this space of learning the law of attraction after years of listening to the 532 or 528 and 432 hertz, if I hadn't done that first to lay the groundwork, then I wouldn't have been able to move so quickly through the law of attraction. But that is what stabilized my emotions. That was it. That's what allows me the clarity today.
Okay. What about you, Ricky?
I feel that there's loads of ways to really, these are things I've learned, because I have had issues with anxiety and depression. I can remember years ago, actually, I was listening to Eckhart Tolle, whatever his name is. Yeah. And I was going through a sort of a little relationship breakdown, a long distance one, actually. But it's still difficult, and I can remember coming into my body and sort of, at that point, I was sort of ignoring my mind, I suppose. I was focusing more on how I felt in my body system and the energy of being alive. And there was this core goodness. There was this core sense of things are all right, beyond the pain, beyond the emotion. And I sort of went into that. That was a first way of dealing with things, which wasn't really tackling the issue, which was for me, childhood trauma, emotion that was stuck within the body system, but at least it was a way of sort of dealing with it on a day-to-day basis, so whenever I had to do anything that seemed to really bother me, I would not get too het up about it. I'd be very, very in this moment, very focused on the now. And in doing so, when I did reach a situation that I'd find anxious, I'd be all right, But I wanted to delve a little bit more deeper into that, which is that I had sort of a partnership with about 12 years healing work in it, helping each other through things. And I found that releasing some of these things from my childhood did shift the energy, did shift the anxiety and all that for good, and in doing so, I was able to now go on stage in front of people, not be afraid of big groups of people, and even the throat chakra open, can now speak to people much more clearer without the fear. But I also feel that there's this deep understanding that the universe is with you. This is in the last couple of years, this deep understanding that we are being looked after, and it's more the need to stop trying so much, stop trying to control everything and realize that you can't. You can't control everything.
Hey, look, you got to laugh about this shit, dude. That's absolutely, man.
You have to, yeah.
That's why we're developing the seventh sense. Talk about the fact that this seventh sense kind of overrides all 5 other illusory senses.
It does. Mm-hmm. It does. And I think, anxiety will come up now for me, but it will go. And it's like, because I'm not avoiding it, because I'm not saying it's not there, I'm not trying to, go and eat loads of chocolate biscuits, like in a massive binge to try and suppress what's there. There's this understanding, no, I am strong enough to allow this emotion to rise, allow this anxiety to rise, and then let it pass through and out. And often you don't even need to be, in a flood of tears or whatever, or whatever it is. Sometimes it's just the acknowledgement of it for 5 minutes, lay down, stop, let it pass, and then you're off, and you're like, hey, I'm ready for the rest of the day. If you don't acknowledge it, it's like it can stay for hours,
Right.
So it's our resistance.
That's so true.
It's our resistance.
Kimera?
There you go.
Well, I was just saying that's so true, because I've had anxiety and panic attacks, and when I didn't deal with them, they stayed for weeks. And now, when I get a bubble of anxiety, I just kind of like sniff, and depending on the level of trauma that I'm dealing with, I may weep, I may just do some breathing exercises, or I may just sage myself and be like, all right, that's it, thanks. And then it's off to my day. You're right. Like, I don't let these things linger any longer, because the lingering is what really hurts you. It's the trapped energy. If you allow it to pass through, like Ricky said, then you don't have to be, beat down by it. So that's not to say, everyone, that I don't have anxiety or I don't get angry or I don't, wake up in a crap mood. Like, I totally do.
Of course you do. Everybody does. It's part of our challenges.
Yeah, totally. But I have learned to laugh a lot more about it. I just laugh about a lot of crap. I just be like, that sucks. And then I start to giggle because I'm like, screw it. Like, it's so what? I mean, so what? Life can be shitty, but it can be a lot better too. What do you do when you fall down, my darling? You have to get up again. You have to. That's what makes winners. Winners are people who are unwilling to be knocked down forever. You just get up, and as tuning forks, I feel that's a very important skill that we lend this matrix, that we are resilient in the things that we have dealt with and are now able to stand in our truth and resonate for the rest of those so that they may decide to make their journey with us, and that's all I feel that I do. I don't feel that I do anything major. I feel that I'm just fulfilling my purpose as, who I am. I have to say what is true, and I don't not do what is really me. I rock my crystals, I talk to birds, and that's what it is.
Wonderful.
I want to just also add to that, if I may, the fact that, you talk about passing through and the lingering and not dealing with, but there is an even more simpler experiential tool that everyone can utilize, and that is cutting your cord of attachment. And I discussed this earlier with Kimra just today. The fact that even after this conversation, don't carry the energy of another person with you once you've completed the task. Life in the 3D, life in this earth experience is filled with tasks, but they are part of a finite and absolute matrix. So automatically get into the habit of becoming mindful to the situation that, yep, that's done. I've hung up now. Now I'm going to utilize, the so-called magical, invisible cutting of the cord of attachment, so that when I leave the circumstance, I leave with my sovereign being intact, right? I move forward without keeping my attachment to what I was just, interacting with. Make sense?
Absolutely.
And it's so simple, a lot of the modalities, whether it's the Hindu or the Buddhist or whatever, they talk about, the bliss that is separation. Don't get kind of locked into, the delusion that the term separation has a negative connotation. It doesn't. That's just the language, of the mind. It's just the way that you've been conditioned and taught to express yourself. Separation is basically allowing yourself to deal with what you need to deal with and then remove yourself from it. Not feel like, I'm separated. I feel isolated. I feel like I'm not part of the divine plan because I suffer from, all manner of, illness or mental illness or chemical imbalances or whatever. That's what self-love will teach you, is that utilize these elements, part of the body elemental, if you like, to nurture and nourish your situation, and then remove yourself from it, detach from it, And I hope that can resonate with all of you, particularly in what we call the more free-flowing realm of the heart space, because then you stay in a much more lucid experiential state, right? Not solidified into the collapsed particle of it's got to be this way and there's no other way because that's the way I was told it has to be. I mean, that's the issue, isn't it? Really, we're not listening, or we've stopped listening, or we don't even know how to listen to our inner child. Our inner child is speaking to us all the time saying, why are you taking that so seriously? can't you look in the mirror and have a laugh at this? Because it really is, a comedy of errors most of the time. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree completely with that. I agree with that completely. I'm like, everybody's a clown. What do you mean? We're all just dancing in a freaking circus. It's fine. If you don't laugh at yourself, then when other people laugh at you, you take offense.
That's right.
But you also have to have enough self-love to realize when that's not okay. When people are bullying as opposed to,
That's jealousy. Can I just say that when that happens, that's just the kind of the jealousy factor, that people don't like the fact that, he's blissed out, or she's always in a bubble of joy and nothing seems to upset her balance, and he's always moving forward and kind of, head forward and all that. I don't like that, because that's not what I'm experiencing. I'm in a polar opposite feedback loop that is filled with negative energy and a self-perpetuated deception I create for myself. So I manifest and manufacture a kind of a solidified form of jealousy, and it eats me up, right? It eats me up. And that's why, being completely addicted to the screen, the smart fucking phone, and I love using that. Whenever I use say that term, I qualify it as the smart fucking phone, because it is a piece of shit phone, and I hate it with a passion. But there are those that live literally, what's the term? You live, when you live through the lens of something, there's a term for it. Is it? Do we know what that is, guys?
That's out of my headspace. Sorry.
Okay, but I think I think you guys know what I mean. Kids, when kids live through their dependency on something, it's like, I can't remember what it is now. Anyway, I think you guys know what I mean. So, moving things forward, we have this new moon in Pisces, and this is about ultimately opening our heart to what's around the corner. And I still believe, even though Mercury's been kicking our ass, I think Saturn Pluto's been a rough conjunction. We've got a lot of kind of Chiron energy. We're all feeling the effects of the wounded healer. But I still think 2020 is a highly illuminating opportunity to grow into this new timeline on the new Earth. Wouldn't you agree?
I feel that this new timeline has snapped into place relatively well. I know that a lot of the other women that I kind of resonate with on Facebook have been like, something happened, I feel it. And I'm like, yeah, I don't feel great, but we're in a new timeline, and so certain people feel it. Not everybody does. And it doesn't always mean that like you're not experiencing what's going on in like the retrograde. It just means that your senses are aware of the new level of possibilities that you're able to achieve. That's how I interpret that, So for me, I had signals from my spirit guides and what I call my celestial posse for the last year that said once I got into 2020, resources would become available to me in such and such and such days. So I will get like songs in my head. So I heard the hymn "Hold Fast Till I Come," oddly enough. And so that hymn kept playing, and I was like, all right, well, I'll hold fast, so have faith, and now here we are speaking about the things that are most important to me in my spiritual journey. And the clock right now says 10:33, and for me that always means that my ascended masters are surrounding.
Great.
So here we are.
Great. Well, share the message, share the love, share the compassion, because this is a year of sharing. We are now no longer on the cusp of the age of Aquarius. We're in it up to our necks, and whether we like it or not, this is the time to self-correct. This is the time to birth the new you. This is the time to look in the mirror and see everybody that is predominantly, every soul is beaming back at you, you know, in a great expansive pool of oneness. You know, that's what the planets are telling us at the moment. They're all, you know, everything's direct bar Mercury, and they're all really kind of, you know, moving and trining and conjuncting and sextiling each other, because they feel that that the human conscious evolution needs a break, right? Don't you think we all need a fucking break right now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ricky, what do you think, man? Tell us about, you know, what's going in your head at the moment, because there's a lot going in your head.
I'll try to attempt to. You know, like a lot of the time at the beginnings of the year, you know, you get this excited sort of feeling, and you're thinking, yeah, I'm going to do all this stuff. I'm going to make all these changes. Woo! And I wasn't like that, you know. And this year, I mean. And what's interesting is it seems to be, for me, more about slowing down, really seeing things clearly, not just getting caught up in the hype of something, you know, and in doing so, in that real sense of balance, and I'm not finding it still yet, you know, I'm getting moments of it, but at least I'm not getting too caught in, you know, fears or anxieties, or too lost in anything, you know. And I think this is the point, what you said about the detachment earlier, you know, it's not about being detached as in emotionally unavailable or a disconnected kind of person that people can't relate to, which, let's face it, does happen a lot with spirituality. You know, I've met people who seem very normal, who had much stronger heart energy than people who were, you know, doing meditation and supposedly really spiritual, you know. So, but, you know, I feel like it's the time to really see clearly, and I think sometimes doing nothing is a good way forward, because so many of us, as we can see, are being caught in the social media, caught in sort of almost being black magicians, you know, and trying to put out something in order to get something.
Yep.
And it's like, well, you know, where's your energy coming from? You know, sometimes I notice when I share, for instance, on Facebook, it's coming from that state of, I'd like to share this, you know, I like to share who I am. Hi, it's me, you know, I've been doing this lately, you know. Whereas other times there's that sort of inner child that's needy, that wants, or maybe I feel like, you know, I want to expand my, you know, business or whatever. And that's all right too, but it needs to come from, well, for me, it needs to come from an authentic place, which is in business terms, that's pretty problematic, because the way I'm working, it doesn't really fit in the normal world. But we are talking about, you know, not fitting in the normal world and the way things have been, and reclaiming our sovereign sort of truth and understanding. So it's becoming clear or evident to me that it's like a unraveling of all that are untruths, or all that doesn't serve, and so there's a lot of quietness in me at the moment. There's been a lot of just sort of pulling back, not interacting too much, you know, as in when I'm talking to people, not always being the one who has to speak, but listening, you know. And I think that's really nice to know what you need, because tomorrow it may be different, you know.
Yep.
But that's the point. It's about really, you know, cultivating that connection and that understanding. Well, what do I need to do today? What is right for me to do today? And, you know, you'll find that you make a decision and suddenly it starts raining, and you realize, oh yeah, you know, that's why I'm deciding to go home now, or, you know, that's why I'm going out, because I unconsciously knew that the sun was going to shine, or, you know, whatever it is, you know, you bump into the right person because, you know, you just happen to change your plans, you know. And I think that's really good. So there's sort of like method in the madness, in a way, you know. And we don't have to always be so rigid and in control of everything. And that's what like we said earlier, it's hard to give up that need to control, because it's based on fear. So that's what I'm working with at the moment, is trying to unprogram that need, you know, to fall into the fear, you know. sort of thing.
I think it's great. I'll just quickly address it, and then I want to address Joe's question. I think really the fight or flight, the need to kind of always fall back on the safety and security of our need to program our survival instinct and our survival mechanism is becoming less and less for a lot of us. Okay, and I think that instead of kind of reaching for that predictable switch that brings us back into that space, we don't need to kind of embrace that as so much anymore. And I think that's really kind of what you're saying, is that I'm allowing things to just kind of unfold in the natural flow of divine ease and grace. And I'm learning to be able to put the brakes on, and I'm learning more about not second guessing, what it is that I really want to do at any given moment. Yeah. So I think that's great. Now, Joe asked a very good question, which is basically, he wants to talk about procrastination and fixing yourself. Ricky, you're making a lot of noise there. Are you cool? Or?
Is that coming from my end, do you think?
Yeah, all from you, mate.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Or is it? Kimra, are you doing something? Kimra, are you there? Or you? Oh dear, you've gone underwater there, girl. You back? No.
You might want to disconnect and reconnect.
Yeah,
it's just weird like that today.
Yeah, just call back. I'll just disconnect you. Joe, the short answer, my friend, is that we're really, really good at self-sabotage. Okay, that's why we procrastinate. That's why we're constantly in a state of, I know if I kind of look at it from this angle or through this lens, the same thing, then I know that I can basically, fix it. Well, Ricky and I, for quite a few weeks now, have been talking about the fact that there's no fixing, right? The fixing is part of the old paradigm. It's part of the old way you used to think about things. And you're growing into a more, as I said, a more crystalline version of yourself. You're emanating a different aspect of your light body to the world. And it's not about, wanting to fix something. It's about changing it, period, right? Just change it. I with some of the one-on-ones that I do, and that's something that Ricky and I wanted to bring forward as we move to this new platform on Megazine Radio, we are going to make ourselves available for one-on-ones where we will, be able to address particular things regarding the emotional body, what I call spiritual distortion, as Kimra discussed earlier, the ascension symptoms and blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line really gets down to the fact that if you are a person that gets out of bed every day for most of your life on the right-hand side to put your slippers on or to, don your dressing gown and go downstairs and put the kettle on or whatever, just change it by getting out of bed on the left-hand side, because on the left-hand side of existence is a whole different set of parameters, right? You might find that you can't get out on the left-hand side and have too much room because you're probably very close to the wall. But that's going to kind of, through that discomfiture that it creates, it's going to shift your perspective. And that's what you're really in the process of doing, Joe, is understanding that, hey, I'm not the same person. I certainly don't think the same way. I don't kind of correspond or adhere to the same value system. So what is it? Well, that's when you allow the universe to just come in and support you. Don't try to force things. Don't try to fix things. Don't try to find answers, because you already know your answers. Everything that we're doing is essentially already played out. That's what consciousness is. Okay, girl, I got you. Just hang in there. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I hope, Joe, that helps to help you understand that You have the power in this new timeline, in this very powerful 2020 year of physical manifestation. This is a 2-2 year, a 4 numerology year, meaning this is the year of physical manifestation. So if you really want it, if you truly desire it, then it is available to you. You just got to show up and receive it, brother, right? And stop worrying about second guessing yourself because someone thinks this way, or where do I fit into the pecking order of the social matrix? Who gives a fuck? Seriously, who cares? That's all part of the old system. That's all part of the old duality paradigm where everybody believed, well, I need that to balance that. If I don't have that, well then, I'm going to be in a world of chaos and drama. No, it's not. That's you perpetuating your own deceptive myth. Get out of the flow of thinking you're not good enough. Get out of thinking I'm not enough. You're more than enough. You just got to embrace it, And when I bring Kimra on to kind of address this at the same time, I think you'll understand that even from the feminine perspective, it's still about 2 very important things. One is drawing self-love into your field of energy, right? And number 2 is cutting yourself slack, right? Allowing yourself to integrate within these difficult shifts happening to the genetic template of the human genome right now. A lot of people don't understand this because it's something we've never experienced before. So you got to kind of look at the comic angle, right? Kimra, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you definitely have to look at it from a comic angle. We are definitely in uncharted territory, folks. Abraham Hicks calls it the leading edge of creation. And that's where we truly are in this time-space reality right now. And procrastinating to heal yourself or to deal with your issues is often a symptomology of not recognizing divine timing and falling into the ego trap of having to get something done. Ricky spoke on sometimes the value of doing nothing. And that is so true intrinsically, that we are so used to this constant monkey chatter, as you call it, or this never-ending stimulation from social media and telephones and TV and radio, and people are never quiet. And even if they are quiet, there's light chatter, and then there's, passing cars, and there's civilization. We were not made for that. We are enjoying it. Don't get me wrong. I love my Wi-Fi. But we weren't made for that. We were made to tune to each other in a different way, a more visceral, empathetic, psychic manner. And so when you are not allowing the timing of something to happen, then it is often difficult for you to do it. And sometimes it's like Mike said, you just have to start sometimes. Sometimes you just got to be 1% better every day. And if you do that, you'll be 364% better by the end of the year.
Yay!
It's baby steps. It's baby steps. You have to be extremely gentle with yourself. And that was something I did not understand. I didn't understand gentle because of the way this matrix is set up. It's very harsh on those of us who are extremely sensitive. And if you find yourself listening, then you are one of those people. And so, I always say to soothe myself, hey, welcome. I love you. You're not crazy. This is a shit show and we're having a blast. Once you get over to the other side, you'll laugh about it. But right now, while you're in the trenches, it's rough. And I get that. I get that. And it's not an overnight process and it'll never be done. But you will get better at it. And then you will reach a level of, stability where you don't feel like, necessarily hurting yourself because of the level of pressure you feel from what's happening in transits. You'll just take them with a grain of salt, and shrug and laugh and go, well, glad I made it through that one. And that's it, you know?
That's it. And I just want to say that, look, first and foremost, thank you very much. Obviously, 22 to 2020 has really resonated with a lot of people in their higher divine space, because we have so many women with us today, and I'm really humble and grateful. Kimra, you must be a diamond magnet, honey, because you brought the girls. You brought the girls forward. I think they realise that the dudes aren't going to be so dudeish all the time now.
Well, it helps to balance it out, and I know that Corey is dying to talk about the masculine and feminine balance, and it's something that definitely needs to be addressed, because we're finding energies in different bodies, and that's something else that people aren't recognizing. We're finding masculine energy in feminine bodies and feminine energy in masculine bodies. This is a very interesting time span, and for me, my understanding of it is that this is a way to balance. So, like Joe, you're anxious about a lot of things, but that's because you think there's a right or a wrong way to do things. There's no right or wrong way, sweetheart. You're uniquely presented with what you need to find your way. And what you need to do is just trust in the love of yourself and the fact that you are equipped. And so if you found yourself here today, you have tools and they are being made readily available to you. You just need to open up to receive them. And, by being on this podcast today, you've already made your opportunity 1% better. And that's the beauty of it. That's really the beauty of it.
Absolutely. I'm just going to stop you there for a minute, Kimra, because I think it'd be great. I just want to make it clear to everyone again, if anybody wants a copy of the entire live stream, which has now been going for an hour and 45 minutes, we are happy to share a low-res MP3. Podbean gives us a recording. Any broadcast software gives us a recording, and we're willing to share that with you. All you need to do is confidentially share your email address and we'll send it to you. But Kimra, can we just go back to the beginning and perhaps just address the girls again, the women again, regarding the importance of understanding their divine feminine nature right now in a time of emotional overwhelm, please?
Ladies, oh my God, ladies. Right now is the opportunity for you to be so intrinsically yourselves. You have the chance now to be more feminine than ever before in whatever way you deem that is. There is no right or wrong way to be feminine. I just want that to be clear. What I want you to do is to tap into what feels best to you in that feminine sense. How could you know that you're dealing with the feminine? Generally, the left-hand side of the body, ladies, is all that deals with the feminine. Okay, so anything that gives you chills on the right-hand side, or you start to get pains on that side, or you start to notice feelings on that side, that tends to deal with your feminine aspects. Pay attention to those, recognize them, research them, ask questions, get in touch with what you need to balance. And then, like Ricky said, look at your childhood trauma. Please, everyone, half of the work would be done if you would go to your childhood trauma and deal with that. Because there's a lot of crap that you need to unlayer, and if you start there, it's kind of easier. Your inner child is as close to your God source as there possibly can be, I feel, and we know that because when we look at our external children, they're closer to the thought patterns of abundance than we are, and of love and of support than we are, and so they speak their truth easily, and so. In us, we have to go back to that, ladies. We really need to get in touch with that and not hate our period and not hate our mom and not be catty and not always say that, oh, I don't want to have friends who are girls because they're so catty and mean and they're never supportive. And no, these are divisive lies that are in the construct of the matrix to separate us, because in womanhood, there is unity, there's support, there's stories of love and truth and power. Like women sharing space and holding space for each other, that's our balance. That's our balance. That's what our love is. And that's what our emotions are. Our emotions are our superpower. The men create the structure in their energy, and the women, we fill that structure with love. And that's what our emotions do.
Awesome.
You know, and it's so beautiful to speak on it today. I'm so thankful to even be able to say that. I really am. Thank you.
You really not hear me, Mike?
Corey, are you there?
Yeah, this is me. This is
Poor
Corey.
Corey.
I just wanted to make sure you could
Hi,
hear me
Corey.
through Skype.
Oh, okay. Sorry, man. So okay, you were there. I just didn't know whether you connected. Okay, sorry, bro. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I've been here the whole time. Yeah, no, it's fine.
Oh, dude, technology. Can I just say it? It just fucks me shit up all the time, man. Seriously. But anyway,
No worries.
Corey, welcome. Say hello to Kimra and to Ricky, and the floor is yours, brother. Tell us what's going on over there in the mad world of. Where are you again? What's the name of the place? Virginia. You're in that crazy Hampton Roads place, right?
Oh yeah. I'm not sure if I want to talk about domestic issues at this point.
Let's not talk about domestic issues at this point.
I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you, Mike, for always, like, week by week continuing to be there. I think what you're doing is amazing and providing this level of support, not just for me, but for everyone. And the consistency is really important, both for me and I think everyone. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you, brother. We love you, man.
And then Kimra, thank you for bringing some much needed feminine energy to the party. It's been fantastic listening to it. I think you bring a lot to it and a great balance with what Mike is doing here. So thank you for that. I wanted to talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the sacred masculine and sacred feminine, because I think there's this sort of meta, once I get into it, you'll sort of see this pattern everywhere, that it's important to approach everything from both the thinking and the feeling side, which do have this metaphorical resonance, if you will, with the masculine and feminine. The sort of big revelation for me, I don't know if you've heard me prattle on about this, Kimra, before, but about 8 years ago now, I had my mental breakdown, start to awakening, or whatever you want to call it. And a lot of it had to do with understanding the core metaphors in quantum mechanics, the particle and the wave duality. And I sort of realized that this apples and oranges, there's this balanced metaphor at the core of the quantum uncertainty, which is the idea that any matter in the entire universe can be a particle or a wave at the same time.
Yep.
And if you look at the particle wave duality, what it means in the physics, a particle, its location, but you don't know anything about its direction or speed, its dynamics. The wave shows you all of the places the particle could be, and so together you're able to sort of see the direction and the composite of the whole. But one of the big connections for me was linking the particle wave duality to the divine masculine, or the sacred masculine and sacred feminine, that the male is the sort of particle of the equation and the female is the wave, that the female encompasses the sort of all of the places that one could be, and also the movement. There's something very resonant about the idea of the sacred masculine, that, and the sort of masculine as the structure or the sort of singularity, whereas the feminine is the whole, the together, the unity, the spirit, the emotion. But it kind of goes deeper than that. But one of the things I just sort of wanted to talk about on the top is the sort of mistake we humans make that noise isn't coming from me, is it?
No, Ricky, you out in with the birds at the moment, man?
It's shielded. See what it's like now.
Okay, no worries.
Okay, go on.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't me. One of the problems we have as humans, especially right now, there's a lot of big dramatic shifts when it comes to, power structures and essentially the fundamental ways we interact between, the feminine and the masculine energy, which there is a correlation between gender and sex, but it's not absolute. And that's one of the things that we really just have a hard time understanding, the feminine energy within males and the masculine energy within females. One of the sort of macro points I wanted to make, and I definitely want to get your take on this, Kimra, is that I feel like there is a very consistent, both a a polarity within the polarities, right? Like, so you have the particle masculine, the feminine wave, but then within this masculine and feminine, you also have what is sort of like its own particle wave duality, if you can imagine that. Or another way of looking at it is too much masculinity, toxic masculinity versus positive masculinity, and toxic femininity versus constructive femininity. And each one forms essentially a triangle, right? It's the traditional blade and the chalice, or the two triangles and the Merkaba or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like you
the
have
double Taurus.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so the when the two are balanced, they fit together and there's this harmony. But I like to sort of say it in a somewhat crass way. You have the opposite of the sacred masculine, sacred feminine is the super dickish energy on the masculine side and the super bitch energy on the feminine side. But men can be bitches and women can be dicks. It's just we're not like used to that just yet. And the sort of, I'll kind of tie it all together with the sort of realization I had about the Da Vinci Code, if you will, like the idea behind the Holy Grail. I think there's this kind of like Holy Grail Da Vinci Code within the Da Vinci Code, which is you look at both the mythology behind Jesus of Nazareth, or Jesus Christ, depending on your belief level, and then also Da Vinci's take on that. And you see that a lot of what Da Vinci was doing had to do with androgyny and balance of the masculine and feminine. The Mona Lisa, the most famous painting in all of human history, is androgynous. And also the Last Supper, which plays heavily into which, they made it to be about the Mary Magdalene, Jesus, or whatever. But if you look at that painting, it's basically the same person mirrored as a feminine and as a masculine person, making that sort of feminine chalice. And the idea is, for the overly masculine energy of the time, Jesus of Nazareth brought a feminine energy, a togetherness, the whole to that story. And I think a lot of that is missed, especially through the sort of misogyny of the Roman Catholic Empire and stuff like that. But I know I've just thrown a lot of stuff out there, but I would love to get your take on that stuff, Kimra.
Go, girl.
Woo. Oh my God, Corey, that was fun.
If you mute your mic, a lot of that's
wow,
coming from you again. Can see on Sky. Just mute your mic, man.
You're correct. There is this almost like a four-way slipstream of energy, and the way that I'm able to understand it is in a quantum way. So we are not just the four normal cardinal directions. We're also the the cross points, the conjunction points that are in between that. And then we're also like a three-dimensional version of that, so when I think of these things, it's like I kind of think of us as like Death Stars, like, because I'm a Star Wars person. So
cool.
If you imagine that can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. If you imagine that each section of your body is like a Death Star in different colors and energy, and you're emanating from your front and your back and from your side and crossways, and you're going from all directions, okay? And if you think about the intersection of people's energies and how they need to learn to balance their masculine and feminine energies, you will find what you're speaking
hold on just a second,
in a microcosm
Ricky,
and a macrocosm, okay?
Ricky, in your app, you should be able to see a little microphone icon. You can just click it. I can see on the Skype app that every time it goes crazy, it's coming from you.
Right, it's interesting. I've been having a look. I've actually got the whole mic covered at the moment.
No, it's not. Yeah, use the mute button on your app. You can do it whether you're on the portable or the desktop. Even though you have your hand over it, I can hear it every time.
Right.
Can you mute the mic, Ricky? Because we're getting a lot of noise, and we're doing really well, but we're getting noise now, and that's no good for everybody.
Yeah, just when you're ready to talk, you can unmute it.
That thing at the moment. Can't seem to find it anywhere.
Okay. I'm sorry, Kimra. Please continue.
No, that's fine. This is a retrograde, and so I expect interruptions. Like, this is what happens with communication and Mercury. You can't. We're lucky we're still on.
Exactly. Can I just say in front of everybody, are you rapt that we're still going? I mean, come on. This has been awesome.
I'm so amazed. Yeah, like, I'm so amazed that we haven't cut out words. Like, this is fantastic. Screw it.
That's the divine.
Okay, so, yes. So on the subject of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, in my experience, I had to actually do a meditation to balance the divine masculine and the divine feminine within my own conscious integration of my sovereign self. Okay, my I am presence. Because although I had relied upon my masculine energy to get me through those trauma years, when it no longer served me, I didn't thank it for its service. I just threw it away. And that sucked, you know, because that masculine energy protected me and kept me safe and got me through some of the roughest periods of my life, you know. But I had to acknowledge that. And
in a very positive way, you exude that energy. Like, I can feel the sort of masculine taking control of things, and I appreciate that.
It was work. I'm gonna be real. It was work. And it was work. It's a lot of introspection. You know, something that people don't recognize is that your energy will force you sometimes into the place that you need to be in order to do the work you need to do. So I was in a car accident on June 26, 2017 that put me on disability for almost 2 years. In that time span, I was able to finally rest. And in my resting, I did work on myself. And that's when I took the time to hire a life coach, learn Reiki, learn the law of attraction, and work on myself. For 2 years, I laid in my bed in the dark with crystals and YouTube videos on for sometimes 10 or 12 hours, going within myself to learn these things, to unpack the shit, to just let go of the illusion again. Because remember, 2014, I let go of the illusion. But then when I came out of the mental home, all these damn humans wanted to hit me with reality. They're like, go get a job and shit, and go back to school and shit. And you got to be able to pay for things. And you got a kid you're supposed to be supporting. You know, I'm a mom. I have a whole 12-year-old who just went through my spiritual awakening with me. And that was traumatic. It was traumatic. You know, for everyone.
Congratulations for coming out the other end. You know, that's wonderful.
Right. So from this balanced perspective, you know, I had to do two things. First, acknowledge the masculine presence in my life and what it had done for me. And then I had to grow him up. Because my feminine side came out fully grown. It had grown with me. But my masculine side had stayed a child in my feminine growth. And so I had to do a meditation to not only grow my masculine energy to its full adult potential, but then to join him with my feminine side and bridge that gap. And when the two united, that was a really beautiful moment for me, subconsciously and energetically. And then more shifts became evident in my physiology and in my life pattern and in the things that have been ushered into my existence. And you know, I'm, as always, thankful.
Corey,
so interesting.
It's a good mirror, isn't it, when you think about it, to what you have brought to the table, what you've been through, and where you are right now. Let's talk about the mirror, man.
Oh, you read my mind. That's literally what I was going to say. It's like, oh, that's exactly the mirror, the exact perfect mirror for the thing that I've gone through and I'm still going through. When I had my when I had my awakening or whatever, mental breakdown, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, mental breakdown's fine, bro. We're all friends here.
In 2012, I sort of likened it to this part of Star Trek: The Next Generation. And you don't have to know Star Trek to understand the story point or metaphor, but on Star Trek, there's this android, Data, and you know, he was a robot, and the question is he human or is he not human, or you know, what is sentient life? But in any case, later in the show, he ended up getting this emotions chip, and he puts in the emotions chip, and after he does it, he kind of goes crazy. Like, all the emotions are everywhere, and he has no way to balance this sort of android self with this emotions chip that he suddenly finds. And that's exactly what happened to me once I sort of had these revelations. Like you said, it's childhood trauma, and for me, I had some pretty serious trauma in different dimensions that I've frankly been unpacking over the last 8 years. I think I'm in a good place, but in any case, at the time, everything went sideways, and it was about unlocking my relationship with emotions and how the situation I was raised in and these particular traumatic events that I had gone through essentially stunted my balanced emotional growth. And I was acting out, and I have acted out emotionally and in my connection to other people with emotions. And it's only after I sort of had that big shakeup in 2012 that I was able to sort of unleash this. But I like to say that essentially I was asymmetrically developed. Like, my emotional development was locked in at the time of some of this trauma when I was actually your son's age, 12 and 13 years old. And suddenly, as a mid-30 something, it all came rushing out. And so I was like this 13-year-old adolescent emotional person with in half my brain, and the other half was this hyper-developed, incredibly driven, overly intellectual part, which had sort of dominated my life. And over the progress of the last 7 or 8 years, my personality, in terms of like Myers-Briggs personality, has changed as I've, begun to integrate that emotion into
I'm so sorry.
Right.
You just shocked me.
I was an ENTP, and now I'm an ENFP. What about you?
I was an ENFJ, and I think I switched to an INFP. Something weird. It shifted. It shifted twice in my life. And so that's, people used to tell me, oh, you can't change your personality. I'm like, are you sure? Because mine's changed twice now.
A lot of it's relative.
But it's due to the level of spiritual growth.
Yeah.
Well, let me just stop everybody there for a moment.
Yeah.
Let me just stop everybody there for a moment. Ricky's got to go off to a gig. He's playing in a gig in Glastonbury tonight. So, Ricky, do you want to just kind of give us some closing comments? What about the overall of the incredible experience that we've had here on 22/2/2020? You there?
He's off of Skype. I'm not sure. Did you get him back on something else?
No, he's here on Skype with me. No?
He wasn't. He's no longer in the call that he was in earlier.
Okay, give me a quick second. Let me check something. No, I think what the problem is that he's in a windy area now, and it's getting late in the evening, and it's just probably arcing up. So we might lose Ricky as a result. But thanks anyway, bro, for being part of it. And I'm sure we'll catch up. So yeah, Kimra and Corey say their respects. All right, sorry guys,
Corey,
continue.
Corey, that's what you're talking about is something that I've been wanting to talk about. I call them awakening stories because we all have them. I found like a whole community of people who are experiencing the same sort of emotional breakdown at the exact same time. So, everybody was like, oh, 2012 is the end of something, and it's, we're going to have a virus and blah, 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 blah. And that's what it really is about. No, 2012 was the year that those of us who are supposed to be serving now woke up. And when we woke up, it was a shit show. I had to burn my entire life down in 2014 to get to this present state of grace, and I went through a lot because of that. And I understand what you say, Corey, about having to do a lot of searching to reach some level of emotional stability, because I was very closed off and cut off from my emotions also. And so that data, metaphor that you use is completely accurate. Because when you go from repressed and blunted and no emotion, or flat affect as we call it in psychology, because I had that for years from being so boxed up, when you go to full range of emotion, whew, it's crazy feeling. It's crazy to allow that, to allow the range of emotion that is the true spectrum of our power. And so, I want to thank you for making it through your own journey to be able to meet at this point in time to reflect this to each other. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I really do think, thank you. I really do think that there was a sort of mechanism that drew us to this point so that we can be having this conversation in various ways, so that other people can hear it and identify and connect to it. It's a really weird coming full circle for me. I don't want to get too far. It'll just take too long. I'll talk about anything, but I was raised in this sort of fundamentalist religious upbringing. And when I sort of went away from that in my late teens and early 20s, I gave up on all things spiritual. And part of this journey has been reintegrating these emotions, because I think, honestly, the most connectivity you have to the spiritual world is through your emotional self. And reawakening these things and trying to figure out what they meant was part of bringing that back. And I'm in this phase right now where I just feel like this is the mission. The mission is to reintegrate these things and to bring it full circle and try to describe them in an intellectual way now. Like, I've been out, I've felt it, I've seen unquestionably that, quote unquote, this stuff is real. And now I sort of have to come back to the source and retranslate. Okay, so I've been away, and while I was away, I noticed these things, and they're different than the things that you told us how it is when I was young. Can we reconnect them? And it's hard. It's really hard.
It is hard.
Now in America, it's incredibly.
Yeah, it is. It is hard.
Partisan. Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah, I come from a sort of Christian background also, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Mike, because that was where I resonated with Corey. Like, I come from a very strong Christian background where everything that I did to find my spirituality was like demonic.
The struggle is real. The struggle is real.
So I get that. I totally do. But then I had also come to like my understanding of Jesus Christ and what he did for everybody, and forgive myself for going against my own love of Jesus Christ. And so I was just like, oh, okay. So that was another coming to terms part where that masculine then balance, balancing the Christos love with the Gaia earth. And then here we are now in this beautiful conjunction of a masculine and feminine divine conversation that desperately needed to happen. And you're right, that is the purpose of the mission. It really is. And I'm happy to be a part of it with you guys.
Well,
yeah, I would love to hear you at some point, if it's not today, just at some point, expound upon like the Christian aspect of it, to compare notes on that part. Just a small little story. Like, I'm back in contact with my mother and stepfather in a way that I haven't been in many, many years. And they're the sort of very cliched, I live in the heart of this like conservative Christian plus Republican thing. Like, it actually originated in the area where I'm from, and my father worked for one of the most predominant televangelists who gave rise to this thing. And so my mother and stepfather, I'm actually in their house right as we speak, are still true believers in terms of that weird, to me, hypocritical connection. And like, within just the last week, I had the first, like, what I would call positive conversation with them, in terms of me believing there might be a way forward in terms of rewriting some of the terminology so we can come together. And it was when I explained to my mother the word apocalypse means an unveiling, because I think that's what this is. Like, it's a dangerous thing to say, especially to sort of the entrenched, hard, angry atheists on the left. But it's like, no, you have to give Christians the apocalypse, but at the same time, you have to tell them apocalypse happen again and again, that this is a real apocalypse, but apocalypse does not mean the end and oblivion and nuclear devastation. It means awakening and rebirth and an unveiling. And my mother said, oh, an unveiling, I like that. Like, I was like, oh my God, something, after 8 years, one thing, it got through. But I would love to hear your sort of version of that at some point. I don't know, I'll leave it to Mike.
I'm going to jump in here, guys, because that's a conversation that I'll allow you to share between you. And you guys can do that on WhatsApp or whatever, but we don't want to. We've got nearly 90 people online with us, just so you know. We want to be we want to be able to continue to, offer our insights and our tools of empowerment to the community. So I'll share all her details. Is that okay, Kimra? Can I share your details with Corey?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. I'll send you a calling card, Corey, okay?
Cool.
And that's it. But I do want to ask you, man, because the one thing, that I know that you've been dealing with is the fact that, this displacement, right? Ultimately, you were at your friend Jed's house, I think it was, and then you ended up back at mum's and all that sort of thing, and you were carving out a space for yourself. Have you been in a state of emotional overload? That's what's triggering the insomnia at the moment? I mean, can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, no, definitely. Obviously, there's a lot going on just in the everyday aspects of my life. And it's just been a traumatic year. I sort of stopped. I fell out of my career in late 2018 because I just couldn't be in the situation that I was in. I was working in the media, and I was like, we are the problem. And of course, no one wants to admit that they are the problem because it's hard to put food on the table.
I hear you, man. And I know it, but we got to look at it from a comical point of view.
Oh yeah, no, totally. So I just basically got to the end, and I put my foot down, and I'm like, if I'm going to be homeless, I'm going to be homeless. And I am one step away from homeless, and that I am staying in this situation. But I almost feel like, fate or God or time or whatever drew me to this place, because if things hadn't happened exactly in the way that they happened, I would have lost my mind during the political stuff that's gone on, especially being in this place with someone who is in opposition, but somehow just the right series of events have occurred that I feel like, I was put here to witness this, to sort of see all of these things and how, quote unquote, the other side is doing it. But then on the personal level, the place where I was at before I kind of fell back into, going back into my mother's house for the first time since I was 19, I have this little space, and I was diagnosed with spinal stenosis. So my spinal cord is pinched, and so I got onto physical therapy, and so it's forcing me to kind of do a daily ritual of getting in touch with my body, and I have this little space that I can enclose and start to get more into meditation. That said, I'm still sort of on the edge of oblivion, it feels like, and I'm going through these struggles, but I can't. Everything really does seem to be coming together right now, and I don't want to elaborate too much about what I see happening, moving forward. But it's been really tough, and the struggle is, everyone is so fraught right now, and in a weird way, going through this, and I went through it in cycles, right? I don't have a problem saying that I've been diagnosed bipolar. I talk about mental health issues. I only have a little bit of reluctance, because when you say that, I'm mentally ill in this particular way, to other people, anything you say that sounds uncomfortable to them can be dismissed as mental illness.
Yep.
So I'm not ashamed of it. I don't have a problem with it. But when you give yourself a label, you are then subject to what every baggage that other people who carry the same label have brought. So if you say you're bipolar and you talk to someone who's had a bad experience quite often with someone who's bipolar, you bring all of that baggage. People don't look at you really. And so I look at it as not being able to reconcile my realities. The thing that you can look at that same construct as through the trauma lens, right? Like, so you thought the world was a good place and people treat each other right and you feel love from your parents. You're supposed to treat each other like this. And then something bad happens, especially at a young age. And the reality where something like that can happen to you or someone close to you is a completely different reality than what you understand reality to be. And suddenly those two realities exist in your mind and they don't work together. And to me, that's what I see the kind of bipolar that I have is, because I still see the two different realities I live in. In one way, it's a superpower. I think you look at some of the most highest functioning people in history, and there is a relationship to genius and madness. And I think that when you learn at an early age to see more than one reality at once, it gives you profound insight or creativity or intelligence in one particular way that is somehow equal with the damage that you bring to it. So learning how to basically live, not just, I think the earliest way you cope with it, most people cope with this sort of mental illness is by taking part one or the other reality and drawing a fence around it.
Yep.
And you either live two separate lives, like a hidden life or a life amongst some people and a life amongst other people, or you completely put some of it away and don't recognize that it's there. And I think the journey is about integrating those two things together, both in yourself, in the community you're around, and in your understanding of the world. And that's the path that I've been on for 8 years. And I still am putting my foot down today. I've quote unquote let myself fall into this position because I am not, at some point you do have to draw a line and say, I am not going to be the one that takes on this burden more than I have to. And I have a very revolutionary bent in that I feel like now is the time to start talking openly about these things so that we can reconcile on the macro as well as within oneself. And I fail a lot on the focusing too much on the macro versus myself, but it's not like for me that I can do just the one. But I find that as I do the one, the other becomes easier. And just being forced into this position of, like I said, having to go to physical therapy, having this little space where it's almost like I have to put headphones on and listen to, like, excuse me, like Kimmer was saying, listening, curling up in a ball with the crystals, listening to the various frequencies and binaural beats. I have a parallel that I'm going through. It's very, I think I know what the emotions are when I fall into this sort of darkness now, and it's not like as dire as it was at one time.
Okay.
But I feel like I may be not functional sometimes, but it's not like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. And then I have to recognize, no, the situation around me really is terrifying. And trying to balance that and just honestly doing this right now, having this conversation where I know that other people can hear us. And this is the big thing. It's this, people are not used to talking openly about mental health and frankly, physics and a great awakening. Like, it's a weird thing to talk about. And people come at it from different ways and they all have very different language. I don't know if you've ever heard me talk, Camera, but my deal is like a lot of this vibration stuff and crystals and auras, and a lot of it comes from the Christian upbringing, but also just the way that I'm built. Like, it's not my first language. It's like learning to speak a foreign language. I get it. It means something to me, but I have to like write that translation to make it all fit. And I've done that. Like Mike and I have a very different core language, but I feel like I get Mike a lot. Whereas me from a couple years ago, if you had told me that I'd be like chatting with a guy talking about vibrations and all of that stuff, I would have laughed you. I would have totally not believed you. But here I am. And so this is what we're doing right now. It's having these conversations where we talk openly about uncomfortable stuff and try to build those bridges. And it, you know, that's what I have right now. That's sort of helping me keep myself away from the darkness and continuing on this journey, because it is very tough going for those of us who have been quote unquote chosen or have the touch, which I'm not bragging about. It's miserable. Like, I don't like sometimes when you say something like that,
it's not great.
So Corey, the thing is that, you know, it's great, man, and you're right, this is a perfect platform. And when we move to the new mezzanine platform, we're going to have, you know, even more, you know, open, non-restrictive opportunity. But you're talking about the new expression in this new timeline. This is where you're feeling liberated and you're feeling free. And there's a certain level of your expression in free will, because you don't have that typically kind of branded, embodied fear that goes with the territory, the way that it's always been. Well, it's not like that anymore, as you know. That's the reason why, you know, we fell into a really, really comfortable co-creative space, talking meta language, metaphorical reflective language, you know, which is really what the whole new kind of, you know, what the new crystalline matrix is really all about. So it's great when you have the courage to step up and talk, you know, openly from your heart about your experiences, about what it is that you're ultimately going through. And then when you can echo that through the mirror of what I would call, you know, conjunctive relief with Kimra, because she shares a very similar kind of, you know, experiential scenario, then that's really what God's divine plan is all about. And I hope everybody who's listening, and wow, guys, nearly 100 people, holy shit, man, that's amazing. I'm blown away, to be frank. But the fact is that if you can just allow yourselves that opportunity to tune in to the higher vibration that is God's divine plan, you won't be disappointed, because you're going to get supported this time around, you know. And Kimra, you know exactly where I'm coming from, girl.
I really do, because I received a level of support in the last 6 years or so that I had to find by being alone. And so that's how I really found my support, was by being alone, by taking the time to tune into the frequency of the God and the goddess. And in that, in some of my roughest moments, that's when I felt the support of, you know, angelics, and just this loving well-being would surround me when I was really on my breaking point. And that patched me over to the next step, you know. And everybody thinks that they have to be able to last 1,000 years. No, you need to last the next 30 seconds. Like, quit being so hard on yourselves, my children. Like, it's just now. How long can you hold on now, and to the next now, until the next now, until the next now? And we're just in a series of now. And if you can come from that standpoint and recognize it and step away from the emotional hubbub that is really throwing you off balance, you will navigate through this stream a little bit easier. Things will come smoother to you. And there are ways to soothe yourself. You have to tell yourself things. You know, like, I rampage to myself. I'll say things like, come on, girl, you know, everything is going to be okay. You know, you are supported, you are loved. There's a reason that you are here today. There's things that you are saying that other people needed to hear. There's a reason that you went through these things so that you could say them for other people. Sometimes we forget that our experience is to be the experience, to speak for those who cannot speak. You know, and so that's really the beauty of being able to do that, to be able to speak for those who cannot speak, to be able to love on each other, and to successfully connect and say thank you, and say, you know, I see you, I see that you've struggled, I see that you're in a struggle, but I know that you too can make it, because I I have gone through it. And that's not to say that I'm not struggling. I have my own struggles also. You know, things aren't 1000% amazing for me, but I don't focus on the part that's not amazing. That's the difference. The difference is I don't focus on the part that's not amazing. I focus on the part that is.
Beautiful.
And that's my internal.
Beautiful said. I love that. I really love that, Kimra, because you are essentially allowing your worthiness to be your illuminated path, right? That's what you're recognizing. The parts of you that are already perfectly and aligned to your true and higher pathway, you know? And you've known this for a long, long time. It's just that when you get wrapped up in other people's third-party drama and the whole kind of maya of, you know, a distorted experience and, you know, and the filter of, you know, the way that you're perceived in any given situation or moment, you tend to kind of shy away. You tend to kind of back off and tend to kind of fall back into the shadow, if you like, you know. But you're not doing that anymore because you've identified what I consider to be the most important trait of 2020 and the new human evolution, and that is courage, right? If you don't have courage to stand in your sovereign power, hold your own, and simply say, yes, that serves me. No, that doesn't serve me. And be strong and resilient like an energy warrior in that power, then you are going to have trouble. You're going to have trouble. It's going to be a struggle. You are going to find that you are going to draw event streams to you that will echo, just like the power of attraction will attract the things that you want to manifest. You also can do exactly the same thing with everything you don't want in your life. And when you say to people and the universe, oh, I can't do it. There's no way. I mean, what are you doing? You're negating the manner of lucid possibility and probability that is there for you to show up and contribute to, right?
Yeah, that's definitely what you're doing. That's, you know, in the law of attraction, we call it split energy. I want this, but I say this. I want this, but I need this. Do you want it or do you not want it? Are you afraid to do the work or are you afraid of the money? You know, like, where are you going with your energy? Because in your disharmony with yourself, you do not allow the things that you want. So if you're constantly saying, I am a millionaire, but then everybody asks you a question, you're like, I'm so broke, I can't even make it to next Friday. Well, then, yeah, you're not going to be a millionaire. Your soul might be rich, but you're blocking your ability to get the money, you know? And so, not to touch on money, but just to help people understand that there's ways to fine tune what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And oftentimes the misfortune allows you to fine tune, because in the misfortune, that is when you clearly define what it is that you really want. And what you have to learn is to then focus on what you really want and not let the misfortune distract you.
Beautifully said. Corey, your thoughts on that, mate?
Yeah, one of the things that I had to allow myself to do is, you know, to understand that it's going to be a very dynamic existence when you get caught in the middle of this, and to allow myself on some days when I need to say, you know, my job today is just to be okay with making it to tomorrow. Like that sounds kind of dark, but I need to sort of say that it's not. If you really find yourself in a super dark place, you just turtle in, focus on, you know, being okay in this moment. Are you, you know, do you have food in this moment? Or can you breathe in this moment? You know, is someone coming to get you in this moment? Probably not. You're just okay. Just make your job for that moment to make it to the next day, and you'll find that, you know, as you are able to then look further out, then you can make more positive moves. I hope that doesn't sound too dark.
No,
but I do. Yeah. I definitely
have
been. Yeah.
Go on.
I just want to say I understand that. I understand that, Corey, because I've been in that place where I can only deal with just this moment. I've been in that dark place where I have to just make it till the next day and then hope that the day after that is better and the hope that the day after that is better. But I can only make it through today right now in my thought pattern. And I've had to shut myself in because I've dealt with levels of pain that were extreme. And it had to do with my spinal cord. So I can get that. Some days it may sound dark, you're right, but it's the reality. It's your self-awareness of what your body needs that allows you to make it to the next day. And those who have learned helplessness and who are stuck in the matrix will do the opposite of that. And then they will further destroy their energy or suck out their own personal energy by allowing it to flow into the opposite direction. Whereas if you have the awareness and the set point, like you said, you will just know that you need to make it for today. And you'll just do that. You'll huddle up and rock back and forth and cry if that's what it is until you can get up again. And that's what we need people to be okay with.
Yeah.
But just don't get stuck there.
I wanted to, so it didn't sound so depressing, sort of tie it back into the sort of law of attraction stuff. The sort of bigger point I was trying to make is sometimes you'll think, oh, I want to do this. Here's what I'm trying to do. But if in a particular day, you feel so far away from that, you can't let that drive you lower. You can bring your expectation down and still look at the sort of like positive direction. It's like, well, all I can do today is make it to tomorrow, and give yourself permission to do that so that then you can have those sort of longer term, bigger terms, law of attraction type stuff. Sorry, it was just to tie it all together.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Well, guys, I'm going to say that, we've been on air for 2 hours and 33 minutes. I think we've probably covered everything we wanted to and so much more. And, I'm really super grateful that we've had a number of individuals that have been with us for 2.5 hours. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing. For those who did share their email address and want a copy of the stream, thank you for doing that. Kimra, it's been an absolute pleasure having you online with the 7 Cents tonight. I cannot begin to tell you how grateful I am for our coming together, our co-creation. I see it growing into an amazing tree with so many conscious branches. And I'm humble and really, really happy to have this level of really strong, well-grounded female energy now coming into the flow of the team. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, and thank you, Kimra. It was great to meet you.
Absolutely. And Corey, as I said, we'll just continue to develop this more and more as we go along. Guys, as I said, please stay tuned. We are moving to a new broadcast platform. I hope you stay with us. If we do lose you when we shut this Podbean stuff down, then we apologize. But, we think we can do a better job. And we certainly intend to do exactly that. So much love from all of us here at the 7 Cents. Have an incredible weekend. Enjoy the new moon in Pisces. Enjoy the powerful Mars transits, and keeping on with the Saturn Pluto, and just being real and just holding it together and cutting yourself slack and finding a little bit of time to draw a little self-love into your divine connection with everything that's going on in your life. Thank you so much, and much love to all. Good night.